we had some major primary results in your home state.
Indeed.
So we got Krystal,
Indeed we do.
for people who don't know, is a resident expert of Kentucky and Virginia politics. So Terry McAuliffe, let's put this up there on the screen, is going ahead and won the primary. What does this mean?
I mean, it's okay. So it doesn't mean that much, to be honest with you, because this is widely expected. Terry McAuliffe, of course, longtime Clintonite. He basically sort of made his political bones by being Bill Clinton's best friend.
Oh, and being the greatest bundler that politics has ever known.
Massive fundraiser. I've been around Terry a lot, and just from my run in Virginia at the same time that he was running for governor and stuff like that. And I mean, he does have this like classic politician, larger than life personality,
big man,
dominates a room, all that stuff. It was always when you're at an event, one of these like Democratic Party events, he's always the last person to sit down because he's working the room, just classic sort of like glad handling. You'll recall, I don't know if you remember this, when he first ran in the Democratic primary for governor, it was back in 2009, and he actually lost to Cree Dietz, who went on to get destroyed by Bob McDonnell and what presaged then the Tea Party wave. And that's why these Virginia elections are ultimately important. Virginia and I think New Jersey are the only states that have gubernatorial elections this year. New Jersey obviously is like solid blue at this point. Virginia is pretty blue too at this point, but still it's a little bit more of a bellwether. So that's why these things tend to be viewed as a canary in the coal mine. So number one, what people were looking at is what would his margin be? And his margin was
gigantic,
overwhelming.
62% of the vote.
He won every single city and locality in the entire state. And look, I mean, the guy's a former governor.
Right.
People broadly liked him when he was governor. He wasn't amazing. I mean, in terms of progressive values, he certainly wasn't great. And the area that, of course, I find particularly enraging and also important about Virginia politics for the national political scene is this state at this point, it's controlled by Democrats at every level, 2 Democratic senators, Democratic governor, Democratic House, Democratic Senate. And it is still ranked as the worst state in the entire nation for workers' rights, okay? Democrats control everything, still ranked as the worst state in the nation for workers' rights. So McAuliffe, as part of his campaign, last time around, he did not even support at all. He said no to the repeal of right to work. Now he's moved a little bit and said basically, well, if it ends up on my desk, I guess I'll sign it. But mostly he spends his time illustrating how it doesn't have a chance of passing even a Democratic House and Senate. Very revealing comments. Let's take a listen to those.
Well, but lifting workers up is really important. I get asked a lot about right to work, and I'm very honest with everybody. And I have, most international union support are with me. And I tell them, I got to work on the things that I know I can get done. Right to work has never seen the light of day in the Democratic Senate, as you know. And in the House of Delegates, it just went down to defeat in a Democratic legislature, 85-13. So I understand numbers, I can count, but what I can get done, which the unions and others care about, they care about collective bargaining. Let's get the collective bargaining piece done and all the other issues that I raised. I work on things I know I can get done, and I will lean in hard on those issues. If it came to my desk, sure, I'd sign it. But listen, you can't get it through the House and Senate. I mean, so let's talk about, Chris, what we can actually get. We got a lot of work to do over the next 4 years.
On the one hand, he's sadly right that in a Democratic and House and Senate, it hasn't stood a chance of passing, which is pathetic.
But also, as governors, aren't you supposed to push legislation?
That's the thing. If you actually supported it, but clearly he doesn't. Right, I mean, clearly he doesn't actually support the law, and he's the businessman, and he bills himself that way. So he just has this fatalistic attitude of like, well, it can't possibly pass, so forget about it. But yeah, I guess sure, if it got to my desk, in theory, I'd sign it. That's pathetic. It is absolutely sad. And this is the type of politics that I worry about within the Democratic Party. What's happened in Virginia is the state has become more and more suburban.
Yeah.
Northern Virginia suburbs basically dominate the politics of the state, and that's why the state has turned blue. And so as working class Virginians have come to be less and less central to its politics, you get progressive progress on some issues, and some of them are significant and some of them are more sort of just like signaling issues.
Yeah.
But on core issues regarding working people that would benefit all working class Virginians, it's just completely disappeared. It's a non-starter.
You did a great rising monologue, I think, where they passed the Equality Act, or whatever the state version of the Equality Act is, but then at the same time did not move on right to work. And I think it's very important, and the reason we cover Virginia and Kentucky is not just because you know them. These are bellwethers of the national party system, which is that Virginia is the future of the Democratic Party, which is that you have many former Republicans. Nova was not always blue country. These were Loudoun County, many others, famously voted Republican not that long ago in the distant past. And yet, what does that mean? It means that with all these rich people basically become Democrats, this is the type of politics that you're going to get, which is Terry McAuliffe, former Clintonite. He's, buddy-buddy with the richest people in the whole country. Apparently, that's literally how he became prominent, by bundling money from rich people.
Right.
And then Bill Clinton was like, yeah, you should run for governor, even though you've never done anything before except raise money. And he's like, I'll throw all my support to you. And he was like, okay. And he became a dramatically successful politician. I think he signals exactly in the right way to these more suburban voters. And so, as the country becomes Democratic, or especially the Democratic Party, and it becomes more suburban, more affluent, and those are the people in the driver's seat, this is what's going to happen. Now, back to your point, though, this is the important thing. I did that monologue, I think it was I forget what the data, civics data, which showed that even still, 1/3 of working class whites voted for Joe Biden in the primary. 31% of all Democratic voters in 2020 were working class whites without a college degree.
Yeah.
They are increasingly just completely left behind in this coalition, and they don't have a lot of representation in the future of the Democratic Party of Terry McAuliffe. And Virginia is a key state where there's actually a large working class white population, and they're largely left out of these type of politics.
Yeah, I mean, the Appalachian part of Virginia is just disappeared.
Yeah, they don't care about them.
Disappeared from relevance. I remember, I think as part of that monologue you're talking about, or it might have been a different one, there was a state rep who went and did a tour of Appalachia. It was it was this sort of anthropological tour of her own state.
Horrible.
And I mean, look, kudos for going, at least making the effort. And I don't want to crap on this person who's really in good faith trying to understand the different dynamics and cultures within the state. But it's just sort of pathetic that you have to make that kind of effort, make a big show of it. And there was a whole travel log of her journey in this strange land. It kind of says it all. I do want to say, though, on a hopeful note, this isn't inevitable. It doesn't have to be that this is the Democratic Party coalition. In fact, if you look at the state of Nevada, you see a very different approach.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's not an accident. In fact, it is essential to that model that you have a very, very strong union presence in the state of Nevada. And so this was also really demonstrated in the Democratic primary, right? Bernie Sanders wins overwhelmingly in the state of Nevada, where you have this working class coalition that, is focused on these economic populist issues, versus Virginia. My God, that was the blowout of all blowouts for Joe Biden, where all of these affluent suburbanites just flipped on a dime and were 100% with him. I mean, he just blew the doors off in that state. So, yeah, like I said, I mean, there's nothing too surprising here, but we can never accept and just take for granted the fact that Democrats in control of every lever of power in a blue state, when it comes to rights for working people, they're just nah, we can't do it, we won't do it, we don't want to do it. That's pathetic. That is pathetic, and is a very bad omen for the future of the Democratic Party.
I think that's right.